Ingvar Kraatz from Bidnamic, and Andreas Serr from Automat Ventures, who are going to share a bit more of
Thank you.
the sometimes probably complicated relationship between a founder and an investor. So Ingvar
I can ask him the harder questions.
Yeah.
You can indeed.
So he's going to grill them on stage. You have to be very supportive here. Ingvar Kraatz is the co-founder and the chief operation officer at Bidnamic. Which is a marketing technology platform that helps retailers unlock their full potential of Google Shopping. And I guess his investor has over 20 years of experience in advising, backing, and building technology businesses in Europe. He's an active investor and a board member across a portfolio of early stage, but also growth stage companies. So you know also what happens afterwards. Guys, the floor is yours. Yeah, please don't make it easy to him.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think, well, you've done the intros. I will not spoil it anymore. We go right into it, except to say that you have a hands-on man in front of you, and hands-on is one of the key features here, including delivering his own baby hands-on.
Yeah, that was definitely not planned in this way.
So a lot of other things weren't planned. So I think the other thing I want to stress here is the circuitous and uneven way of things that Ingvar has done in his life. And I think the reason why I want to point this out is because I know that in Europe in general, but also in this country, people like straight ways. Straight. School, university, corporate job, retirement. And Ingvar's way is completely different. It's completely non-straight in every respect you can imagine. So I think it's a very impressive, and I want to point out that circuitous ways are also valid ways. And failure is valid, and we've heard this a lot on the stage as well. So yeah, let's go into, I'll summarize quickly what we're going to talk about and then get right into it. So we're going to talk about circuitous paths. We're going to talk about education, from hands-on apprentice to a doctorate in physical chemistry, with an explosion underway. We're going to talk about corporate job to entrepreneur, with lots of sports and fencing on the way. We're going to talk about multiple failures to success, with sports betting and Bill Murray on the way. And finally, we're going to talk about Bidnamic a little bit, how it was conceived and how it's doing, with breaking Shopify on the way. So let's start with the education. Ingvar, why did you become an apprentice?
Oh, so essentially,
why did you go for A-levels, Abitur?
Yeah, so basically I didn't go for the A-level, so I started out just going normal school route, and then in Germany we have to like this secondary class level, and there my parents are kind of like working background, and I've been literally just basically starting to go into a job and started working. So there I did technical apprenticeship, becoming a chemical lab assistant, and then kind of like in my first job that I did, kind of like Andreas indicated, like an explosion. So on this end, it was literally my first week in the job. So I was in a department which was doing like chemical safety testing, which
for a company that produces
contraception
contraception pills. So
yeah. So it's a big pharmaceutical company based in Berlin. That's where I grew up, and so there, basically, I did this test. We did it's kind of like a drop test. It's a bit of weight and you drop it on something, and then it basically just makes a ding if nothing happens, or it makes a bang. And it basically, the last time it made a bang was like 25, 30 years ago, and it was my first experiment. It definitely made a bang, and I wrote up my report, handed it in to my supervisor. My supervisor, Okay, good. He handed it over to the head of the department. The head of the department an hour later came over. Would you mind repeating the test, please? We haven't had this in a while, so it was more like a qualitative test, not a real kind of like quantitative test. So I put a bit more in of the substance just to be sure. And it was in the bunker and everything. Did the test and it made a loud bang. And yeah, so I was happy that it still made a loud bang. That was kind of like my first kind of like experience in the job. So.
And then what happened on the weekend?
And yeah, so true. There was a bit more to it. That was on a Friday afternoon. So my boss wrote the report, sent it off, and next morning he called me into the office and said, "Oh, you know the test that you did on Friday. Things that you informed me right away because." The factory that produced it just blew up over the weekend. So it was good that my boss handed over the results right away.
But what motivated you? So from explosions and interesting stuff, hands-on, what motivated you to become, to go the academic way after that?
Yeah, so essentially in Germany you have kind of this very old system. You have to, in order to rise up in the company, you needed like a PhD level, and I was on my path after the apprenticeship working at Bayer, and then it's kind of like hit the ceiling. Just we're at the end, and I started doing kind of like evening school to do my A level, and during this time noticed it would be. In order to rise up, I need to basically do higher level of education, and then out of my kind of like fixed job with a good salary income.
What age were you when you did your A levels?
Pardon?
What age were you when you did your A levels?
Yeah, so I think I started my A levels only when I was about 21. So basically, with 16, I started the apprenticeship for 3 years, and then definitely started the more unusual route, and started pretty late, and did the A level in evening school 4 days a week, and then basically took the chance to basically get out and try to discover the world. Went to England, applied for university there, and then studied there was chemistry and mathematics, and yeah, that's how I went into the UK. So,
yeah, that leads us to the sort of second part, doesn't it? So it leads us. You got a corporate job, and then you kind of gave that up for us to become an academic first, to do a master's and then a doctorate. And what happened then? How did you?
Yeah, so especially I did quite a bit of sports through the whole kind of like history. I've been doing fencing, and it was another like fellow fencer who was also at the university, and he kind of like approached me. He had a kind of like a failed startup, and he said, he would love to take someone who can basically crunch a bit of numbers for this new like startup idea. And kind of like the reason why he approached me was I've been just always doing kind of like a bit of like arbitrage sports betting, where I basically just hedged the odds and always made a profit on all the transactions, and it turned over like about, it was $500,000 in sports bets, which I turned over. It was like about 2-3% profit margin, which was really good for as a student because you made a good side income. But then betting companies, they're pretty fast on you and just stop this behavior basically.
Bringing down the house.
Yeah. Good. So so basically then I kind of like started aside while I was doing my PhD. The PhD was in like lasers, bit kind of like also hands-on working and doing a lot of like mathematics at this time, and then I started getting involved with my colleague who is now who has been the CEO of the company, and we have essentially had like three different businesses. The first two, which didn't actually work out.
Yeah, that already takes us to the third point, to the multiple failures that then led to what is Bidnamic today. Yeah. Why don't you talk about the failures a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
And why they failed and why it was all, not successful.
Yeah. So kind of like the first business that we started, that was a business to provide big like publisher sites, like people with a big YouTube following, with a channel to merchandise their audience. So essentially, what we had there is we worked with, some of you might have heard of the platform like the Lead Bible. So we worked with the Lead Bible, Car Throttle, so basically in different niches, and we were providing them with an e-commerce storefront. Together with like merchandise products that they could easily, with one click, add into their Shopify store at the time, and we would take care of the fulfillment. So fully automated from their perspective, and they managed to get a sales commission for every item that we sold for them. But the big challenge with this was that although it was working well on the business side, but the problem was we were really dependent. We were dependent on the publishers to promote the products to their audience. And that's kind of like where the big failure happened on this, because we weren't actually in control of our revenue streams. So we were absolutely dependent, and that's kind of like what we noticed. So we have to iterate along the way now. We have to make a change to this business. And we had a lot of designers on our platform that are really creative people that had tens of thousands of designs in our storefront. And we said, okay, what can we do to really get ourselves in control? And this kind of like where the next evolution was, the next like business opportunity, and there we basically expanded our amount of designers on the platform quite rapidly, and we've always been this way. Let's try to sell it first, and then build the technology on our end, even in the first instance. So there we have been doing a lot of things initially manual, just trying to sell it, advertising, doing those MVPs, as the previous speaker was mentioning. Try to sell the products. Tried different marketing channels. We were selling on Facebook, which is really massively trend-based. And that was also was great, because when you had something which people jumped on, it really scaled up. You had a lot of sales, thousands of sales in a day. But then 1-2 days later, it just stopped. And we tried to iterate and just didn't pick up again. So we had kind of like this constant battle, like on Facebook, to jump on a trend or make something trending, which wasn't really sustainable. And we tried other routes like Amazon ads in this business, which in this marketplace that we had built, and it was really good, because the more products you onboarded into your system, and we had by this time then we had a lot of designers on the platform, a few tens of thousands of designers, and they had about 34 million products that they created in our store. Was a huge amount.
So before you go too far, what happened to Bill Murray?
So essentially, because we had so many different designs on the platform, we also had one of the artists that created a design which was inspired or was related to the Cubs winning the baseball game, and this started to become trending overnight, and we had it in our store. And suddenly we got thousands of orders coming in. And I mean, I thought, it's kind of free fraud. By this time, the whole system was automated, because every few hours we were routing all the orders to whoever the person was based. So we basically had a network of about, I think it was like 30 production units. We didn't own the production units, but we were working with different companies that manufactured for us, and we routed already thousands of orders to the different manufacturers. So I thought, oh, damn, we probably lost loads of advertising spend. We lost loads on production cost, because we have to refund, get chargebacks, etc. And then actually identified, oh, they all bought the same item, and there's something in the news about it. And yeah, basically Bill Murray was wearing this like trendy design, which became trending overnight. So that's why everyone wanted to buy this item. And kind of like on this business, the main kind of like success came in with really advertising on Google Shopping, and that's kind of like where the last iteration comes in. But there's probably one more little anecdote. Basically, in those marketplaces, they grow with scale, and accessing having more designs, more designers, more products, and also accessing different marketing channels, but also regions. And what we did is, in the early days, we used Shopify. And there on Shopify, it was really easy to quickly generate or create more stores. And at the time, Shopify didn't have any limitations on how many products you could sync into their store at any given time. And we had an API connection to Shopify store, and we gamed it a bit. You were only allowed to use one API for one process. So we did a bit of a rotation of different API connections. We had 50 API connections. Everyone did a different process. One synced the image, URL, product title, etc., which was good because I mentioned earlier we had about 34 million products in the store, and we said, oh, let's launch 2 or 3 regions at once. And so we started syncing them in, and then all of a sudden, just everything stopped. And we checked on the Shopify status page, and we saw that the time to response of the last few hours got slower and slower and slower, and then it just killed everything, and all the services were out. So 5 minutes later, I got a call from Shopify and said, sorry, we needed to stop you, we need to disconnect you. So you brought down one server location and hundreds or actually thousands of stores who were on this thing. So yeah, so we managed to bring down Shopify, which we're still a bit proud of. So it took us about I think 24 hours until they allowed us to get back on. We need to promise that we are not doing it at this speed anymore, and then everything was fine. And
but it wasn't actually fine because actually this Ingvar, which was the previous endeavor, didn't work out. Why did it not work out?
Yeah, so.
Apart from not being able to sell 34 million products on Shopify, but
I think the main reason why it didn't work out is at a marketplace you need a given scale, and it was really kind of during this time we built a marketing technology platform, and this allowed us to take all the data that we had and understanding which designers on the platform were really good designers, just based on all the data that we could gather during the advertisement side. And then the real kind of challenge that we had is we were able to advertise the products profitably was our engine that we had built in-house, but then we were also relying on suppliers being reliable. If any of the suppliers that we had weren't quite at the speed, then we had the issues with the customer success side. So especially before Christmas periods, one of the suppliers just decided now, we accepted hundreds or thousands of orders from you, and say, sorry, we can't ship them anymore in time for Christmas. And we had a wave of unhappy clients and customers. So we needed, that was, I guess, one of the downsides in this business model.
And the other were Google crawlers, weren't they?
True. Yeah. I almost forgot about this. Good point. Yeah, you're right, absolutely right. Thanks for reminding me.
Server costs of about 50,000 a month or something like that?
Yeah. By this time, we actually had already migrated from Shopify. So basically what Andreas just said about 50,000 Shopify historically, we were running on their servers, and they were providing, we were on the lowest plan. We paid $19 and had 34 million, $19 a month, and we had 34 million products on their store. But in the later days, we actually built our own storefront. And the own storefront was great because we could really control everything, including the checkout experience, which in the early days it wasn't possible on Shopify. And so it was really good. It was great, but we didn't really understand or didn't check properly on how the server costs evolved, because we really increased the amount of regions, which meant there's 34 million products. Google in advertisement is checking for every individual product that you have. They send a crawler to your website, which basically pings your website, and you have to pay for this on the server cost. With 34 million products, it was a lot of money, and we scaled it across 16 countries. So the server cost from previously Shopify was like $19 a month, skyrocketed to like high 5 digits amount. So basically, would have run out pretty quickly on the money side.
Yeah,
so
the guys were running out of cash. I remember that.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Yeah. So essentially, we built this fully automation on the marketing side, leveraging all the data, every search term which came in on Google. So and we run it in a way that we are able to extract every individual search that happened on Google for the products where we appeared. Plus, we really leveraged all the information on the product side that we had. So then it was actually not us necessarily that initially realized that there was a big potential on this marketing technology that we have built, because it was optimizing for profitability, and we could just tune, do we want more profit, less profit, which was working well. And then it was actually the investors like Andreas and another investors, Marine Muser, he's co-founder of Booking.com, and it was them that actually realized, said, oh, there's a massive opportunity with taking this marketing technology product, and they asked us, oh, could we run your technology on our e-commerce businesses? And that's what we then tried out, and was a nice surprise to see actually our technology worked very well on other stores with other products. And then we said, okay, that is a perfect moment to try to like pivot the business and go away from this marketplace, three-sided marketplace with suppliers, designers, and customers to being a B2B business. And that happened about 4.5 years ago, the switch. And since then we have scaled Bidnamic up.
Yeah, you scaled it to over 100 people, US office opening as we speak, with 20 hires, raised $5 million 6 weeks ago, and so on. So,
I mean, so far we, so far
and actually being profitable. You were profitable before raising, so they were actually profitable before raising this round.
Yeah, so exactly as Andreas said, so we started with really scaled down the team. Before it, this marketplace, we weren't too many, like 7 to 10 people at max, and then that included some interns as well. And then we scaled it down back to the roots with the founders, and then slowly scaled this up. Got the revenue in first. Didn't actually have the proper product built yet for the product that we have now. Tried to sell it first, and then we basically built a proper solution over time after a couple of months.
Yeah, I know time is up, but I well, sort of. We're gonna maybe take 2 or 3 questions if anybody has questions, just so we round it off. I think the idea was to just show, stuff doesn't happen, in straight ways, and life throws you curveballs all the time, and you just catch it and throw it back. And so, anybody, any questions?
I have one, and I have my own mic, so it will be much easier, but I'm going to encourage the others. So I was actually wondering, because you've been going through that journey, and it's been like super crazy. I was listening, but what is then the role of the investor during this kind of, craziness times? Like, how do you support the founder in this roller coaster?
It's a very good question, and it was a very much balance of kind of offhand doing nothing, let them do what they're doing, and being available on the phone. Just Liam. I didn't actually speak to Ingvar so much. It was more Liam, his other co-founder I spoke to. And then, from time to time, he would call me and, ask me, what do you think about the name? I'm like, nah, I don't like it. And he went ahead with it anyway. and what do you think about the pivot? And I'm like, is this really going to be like a big company? He went ahead with it anyway, and success proved him right. So I see.
I guess now you've been really important basically on the investment round, correct? So that's kind of like where your background is as well.
Yeah, now when everything goes fine, I can very well help. But when shit was going not so well, I think it was just to be there and be available. And I think be a sounding board. He was sounding me off on things. They were sounding me off on points, and I kind of gave them a peace of mind, which wasn't always correct at all. And thank God they did their own thing, in many ways.
Good.
Maybe from your perspective, a tip of how to find the right investor for such kind of roller coasters that might come on the way.
Yes, so we started early on with literally some angel investors, and there's kind of like from the network, especially from my co-founder Liam, and they just bought into the original ideas, and then kind of like they were very supportive along the way, and.
Yeah, but let's not forget. So you're positioning as like, oh, Liam had this amazing angel network, and you know what? No, rubbish. He had nothing. He had LinkedIn. So he literally pinged LinkedIn persistently. I had 6 pings from him before I even responded. And that's how we got in touch. So
I guess that's the being persistent and just working for it and trying it. It eventually works. So getting investors is really, it's a numbers game as well. So.
I think like 90% of those amazing angels that invested, they were all approached cold. They were not, in some sort of exclusive network or anything like that.
Wow, cool. Do we have some other questions in the audience? You can raise your hand. Cool. Yeah, we're gonna need one mic. We are short of mics here. Maybe you can also introduce yourself.
Can you talk about the challenges between the co-founders, if there are?
Oh yes.
Yeah, I mean, on this end, so we used to be 3 co-founders, and it definitely evolved. And because we have so many different business stages, it's kind of like the technology did evolve, and there was one change where one person did leave, and but basically it's still 2 out of the 3 which are riding on the journey and pushing it forwards.
Yeah, but you can say it was. I think from at least how I saw it from the outside, I don't know how the relationship is today. I'm not 100% sure, but I think there was a question of technology going from a very front-end focused tech, which was a shop front and all of that, to a super ML-based, data science heavy, back-end heavy kind of thing, which the CTO wasn't making that step, or wasn't able to make that step as much. And so, so it was tough. I remember that time was tough. I had lots of calls.
Cool. Maybe one last question before we end up, please.
Oh, yeah. So great story, first of all, or great interview. Thanks. So more from the investor's point of view, there was a new round, but as a current investor, how much are you involved in these next rounds? Like very hands-off, or like, hey, this is also my company. Like I'm.
No, in this one I was very hands-on because we were going for what was a proper sort of A round type of thing, and this is something that I know well from my day job as well, and so we went through a bunch of investor approaches, investor presentations, and I helped out with the presentation, and I helped out with the negotiations, and one of the important things is to build tension. You don't want to have one investor there only that controls everything. You want to have a tension of multiple, and even if you don't have those multiple bidders, you want to pretend you have them.
It's like dating, right?
So you have to maintain that tension so they don't screw you. And so we had a ton of iterations, and then we went through a very extensive due diligence where financial, legal, commercial, was done by third-party people, and so we were kind of managing that, and yeah, so.
Well, it worked. So congratulations.
Cool. And I'm gonna keep the last question again for myself. So I'm interested, from the co-founder perspective, in those low moments of your journey. I guess sometimes you will probably doubt yourself and all your decisions, that maybe you're running the whole thing to the ground. What is your life hack? What do you tell yourself then? Do you have like a mantra or a sentence?
It's quite tricky, because you're kind of like, very often you're just so in the business, and it really needs, you need to do step backwards to try to identify actually where you are, basically. Is it going well, or are you starting? Is it not going so well? And then I think that it's basically the communication with the other co-founders to really reassess where are we with the business, and then being able to just realize that okay, maybe it's not going where it should be, and then makes the decision to basically change the business and pivot. So I don't really have a mantra. So
Okay. Guys, thank you so much. Let's give them a big applause, and especially to Ingvar.